My name is Dr. Alireza Shokri. I'm the Senior Lecturer in Operations Supply Chain Management in Northumbria University at Newcastle. I'm here today at Alicia to provide a bite-sized workshop about Lean Six Sigma, which is part of the GETM3 project. Wonderful to see you guys here. My name is Ali. This is my full name. I'm the Senior Lecturer in Operations Supply Chain Management from Northumbria University. I also have to thank Dawn and also Alicia to provide this opportunity for us. It's wonderful for us to have opportunity to talk to you. The format of the session in next 1.5 hours is I kick off the session, go through the content, and we try to make it as interactive as possible. So I intend not to talk too much, and hopefully we get you guys to talk to each other, interact with each other, and provide your experience from practice in your discussion. Hopefully that is a way that you enjoy the session more. And then towards the end, for last few minutes, I hand over to Brenda again. She will talk a little bit about the talent management, how such a practical tool or methodology could be actually applied or integrated in talent management, especially in the post-Brexit, with a lot of obviously challenges that the organizations will have. I've got many years industrial experience. I've been working in the industry before. I understand the language of the industry and the business, and I applied the Lean Six Sigma in the company that I was working, and then I joined Northumbria University in January 2011 as an academic. As a purpose of the session, obviously we have three different terms. The short term, which is perhaps applicable for today and next few weeks, is just simply to raise the awareness. I could see when I was discussing to some of you, I could see that some of you are actually expert already in the Lean Six Sigma. Perhaps this is a good opportunity for knowledge exchange, but generally we try to raise that level of awareness and create the opportunity for discussing with actually your departments, internal departments in your organizations. And in the midterm, perhaps you may come back or consider further training, staff developments, or in the longer term, perhaps you really like to just go forward and implement this methodology in your organization, which is for any organization, any sector, any type, any size, anywhere. So it's not limited to any specific sector. This is the beauty of this Lean and Lean Six Sigma. And of course, hopefully you enjoy the result and publicize it in the longer term. So this could be perhaps a beginning of a nice journey for you in terms of your process improvement in the organization. I've put a few quality jargons there, and I could see that it was quite actually a nice exercise. Some of you have already put the stickers there, but intentionally I put these two here from two actually different people. Tom Peters, one of the top business leaders, this is what he said: excellent firms don't believe in excellence, only in constant improvement. So it's all about continuous improvement. And William Edward Deming, he is one of the top gurus in quality management, and he's been around mid-80s and 90s, but he is one of the top actually quality gurus, and this is what he said: a bad system will beat a good person every time. Of course, that could be the case for you guys, especially in terms of the HR. That's obviously developing the people in the system, integrated to the system or good system. This is something that hopefully can get businesses to flourish. What we try to do, we start with the Lean, and then we actually link it to the Six Sigma and Lean Six Sigma and nicely finish it off. Just a little bit about the Lean. As I said, I try to be very quick, and I don't want to just talk too much. If you just leave it to me, I just talk too much. I hopefully try not to talk too much and then leave more exercise to you guys in terms of the timing. The Lean is all about the waste reduction, and it's not just about cost reduction. Sometimes the people believe when we apply Lean, it's all about cost. No, it's not just about cost. It's doing things better or smarter, actually. It's not about working harder either. It's just working smarter in terms of efficiency. Lean thinking is about adding value, and when we say value, is about obviously in the customer's point of view. It's a philosophy to remove the waste from the process. So how we can actually remove the waste, something which is not good for the customer. It could be a toolkit of the tools and techniques. There are a number of different tools and techniques that could be applied in terms of the lean application. And of course, these tools and techniques could be actually fitting the methodology or could be described as a methodology to allow deploying these tools. We have the lean principles. That's any organization with any size, if they really want to apply the lean, they should follow these principles. They need to identify the value, what customer wants, what is value for the point of view of the customer, and then map it. Look at the whole process from outside. So value stream mapping, every single activity, every single resources, timing, very full details of the activity, and then identify the areas which are not adding value to your customers. Sometimes you don't believe it. Sometimes you say, okay, well, we're doing well. But when you put it on the map, value stream mapping, you say, okay, hang on a second. I think we are not doing very well in that area. Why this area is there? Why instead of 5 minutes time, you're taking 2 days time, for example, to, I don't know, deal with some paperwork or customer order. And then you can actually identify the area of not adding value and then create flow, reduce the interruption, reduce the disruption, and hopefully make sure that you make your process simplified. And through that, then you can actually listen to the customer, pull the order from the customer. Traditionally, service manufacturing, both of them actually, they try to push the product or the service to the customers. And that will end up with a lot of problem. But in the more modern way of the business management, it's about pulling the order from customer. Don't produce anything if the customer doesn't need that. So this is again, part of the principle for the lean. And finally, seek perfection. Do everything nice, perfect from beginning. That's how actually lean could be fitting nicely with the quality management practices like Six Sigma. There are some further readings that I would recommend you to actually read them. If you don't have these books, you can simply buy them from Amazon or you can borrow them from the libraries, especially the first one, The Machine That Changed the World. It's a wonderful book about adding knowledge behind the lean management. There is a mission statement for the lean. Manage the business which surpasses the expectation of the customer in an efficient and waste-free way. Again, it's not just about your own organization behind the scene. It's not just about cost reduction. It's also about your customer. Sometimes implementing lean could make your business even agile, just in time. Make sure that you provide the customer service and at the same time make your business efficient. This is wonderful. This is what every business wants actually. So it's all about doing better, cheaper, faster, with less effort. Of course, this is what all of us as a consumer wants. We want everything cheaper, better, faster. And of course, that will put more pressure on the businesses. So if they implement lean, perhaps they can actually follow this and they can gain further competitive advantage. A little bit key terms and concepts. I'm sure perhaps some of you may already know about this. I just go through them very quickly. Waste is something that customer doesn't want. It's not about your business. It's about your business, but it's not about you define the waste. It's about customer define the waste. If you really want to add value to your customer. You need to have a process view. Everything works together, sets of activities, transforming input to the output. There is always a reason for the failure. Not blaming the people, you should find the reason. That's why you need to have a process view. Customer. Traditionally, the people think that the customer is the people who pay the money. No, customer could be, I don't know, one department to the next department, one office to another office, one desk to another desk, one production line to another production line, because they need information, they need product from their supplier. So this is the view that we need to have, who the customer is. And of course, we need to listen to the customer voice of the customer. It could be spoken or unspoken. We could be reactive to the voice of the customer or proactive. And then we have three different very important terminologies: simplifying, standardizing, and automating. Of course, many businesses perhaps would not afford to do the automation, to use the technology that much. Yeah, we are getting to the digital technology world, but depending on the size of the organization, they can still focus on the standardization and simplification. You cannot imagine how much, if we simplify and standardize the operation, we can gain benefits. And continuously we need to do that. Continuously we need to improve. We have a terminology, I don't know if you've heard about that before, Kaizen. It's a Japanese terminology of the continuous improvement. This is where the whole thing comes up actually. After the World War, Japanese people, they couldn't afford with the value of the Western countries, like a lot of innovation, design, they came up with the continuous improvement idea. And the Western countries, interestingly, they actually copied the idea because it was very, very effective. And of course, looking at the continuous improvement and the value of the Lean, we try to pool the order, pool system just in time, rather than just push to the customer and then end up with a lot of waste. One of the main important factors or practices in the Lean is the Gemba. I don't know if you've heard about that. Gemba talk. Just go to the process. You are a leader, you are a manager, don't sit behind the computer in your office. If there is any problem, let's go there. Let's go behind the computer. Let's go talk to the operative. Go to the shop floor. Go to the warehouse, to the office, and see what the problem is. Get together and solve the problem. And then staple the process to the people. Follow it up. So, okay, this is the problem. We got the time now. You and you and you, can you sort this problem out and report it to me, please? So then, obviously, we can staple the process and make sure that we solve the problem. Okay, I'm gonna be shut up now. If I just ask you guys, please, for a couple of minutes in the pair, obviously, I know some of you may be colleagues. If you just discuss for a couple of minutes, I'm sure you got the space in your handout. Perhaps you may come up with some example of the Gemba in your department, like the people go to the process, go to the problem, visually looking at that and staple the process to the people. If you just come up with a couple of examples, that will be wonderful.
No.
That's a wonderful example. I'll give you another example. I've met somebody as a managing director in the company, and that was something that he said actually. He had a manager, and they had a problem it was a manufacturing actually. They had a problem with the machinery. The manager went to the shop floor and one of the machines was leaking the oil, and straight away he was angry. He was just kicking off and just telling to the operative of the machine, what's going on here? You clean this up, otherwise I'm going to sack you. And without asking any reason, without talking to the people, just shoot off to the office. But however, the better approach for that could be, of course, looking at the problem and perhaps asking the guy, okay, what's the problem? He may say, okay, the problem could be because of the new part in the machine, and then that guy could go, for example, to the purchasing team. Why did you buy these cheap parts, for example? Perhaps they may say, okay, because you as a manager asked me to buy the cheaper products. So perhaps the blame would come back to the actual manager. So these are the things that it is very, very important in terms of looking at the problems. We have these 6 famous big losses, and believe me, there are lots of organizations, they have these losses, but because perhaps they don't have that knowledge or visibility of the Lean, they wouldn't consider that, and they actually lost a lot of money. First one is a setup or adjustment time. It's not just in the manufacturing, it could be also in the service. The time between setting up, for example, from 2 different designs. They have to switch off the machine, the big machines, 2 different designs, or many different designs, many different products, have to switch the machine off, change the setup, change the adjustment. Of course, they lost the time. Half an hour, 10 minutes, still is a time loss. Breakdowns, a lot of issue with the breakdowns with the computer, breakdowns with the machinery, for example, breakdown with the system. This is something that we always actually experienced that. In our university, sometimes, oh, well, sorry, this is not working. We have a breakdown in the system, and of course, that's a loss. This is something which is not good and could be preventable. Small stops, again. Sometimes we have to stop even for a few minutes, or I don't know, 10 minutes, a few hours, depending on the operation. Reduce the speed. Sometimes because of any reason, the speed is not as much as it should be. And that will affect in terms of the resource waste, in terms of the time waste, and of course, at the end of the day or end of the month, there are some money or some financial loss associated to that. Startup rejects because of the poor quality, poor service, a lot of reject from the customers. And then you have to spend a lot of time dealing with the rejects, dealing with the customer complaints, rather than doing the adding value activities. And finally, production and the service rejects, which is obviously perhaps related to the startup rejects as well. Again, a lot of issue with the poor quality products. Okay, so I'm gonna stop here again, and if I just ask you for a couple of minutes, if you come across with any of these losses in the last few weeks, perhaps, I don't know if whether you knew about that or this was quite new to you now, perhaps you can just go back to your experience and then just put it there. And what did you do with that? Did you do anything, or I mean your managers, anyone? So that will be wonderful if you just come up with some examples about those 6 big losses, if you had any. Right, value. What do we mean by value? That's one of those actually tricky things. Of course, value, we are not talking about value in terms of the monetary aspects. It's just not that one. It's about value in the point of view of the customer. And as I said at the beginning, customer could be just next desk actually to you, or next department, next office, next production line. We have 3 definitions here. Value-adding activities. What does it mean? Any activity which is important for the customer. Yeah, the customer who's paying, and also the customer who is receiving your information, your goods actually. What is good for them? Perhaps they don't bother about many things that you're doing behind the scene. So some of those activities that you do behind the scene is value for the business or business added value, but customers don't care about them. Finally, there could be some of the activities which is not adding value at all. So having the boundaries between these 3 are quite important, because you want to see, okay, which of these activities are non-adding value at all. So we can actually remove them, we can minimize them and save money. And of course, here between these 2, yes, it's not good for the customer, or the customer doesn't care about that, but we have to do these things, and it adds time, it adds to some customer frustration, but it's part of our system, it's part of our procedure. We don't have any other options. This is something that businesses actually get a little bit challenged here, how they can actually make that difference. Okay, right, I've got another activity for you. I've put these examples here. I'm sure you got it in your handout. What I would like to ask you, perhaps per discussion, if you just tick, what do you think are these activities? Are they value-adding activity for the customers? Business value activity, customers don't care about them, but you care about them? Or non-value activity, nobody care about them and they're totally waste? The first one, attending a weekly team coordinating meeting. What do you think? Is it value-adding, business value-adding, or non-value-adding?
Value-adding.
Value-adding. Anyone disagree with this? Business value-adding. If you ask me, I would say business value-adding. Customer, well, yeah, as many meetings you want to have. But this meeting is perhaps could be very important for us. And of course, we spend some time which may have some issue on the customer's value as well. Filtering through your daily email list. Value adding, non-value adding? Business value adding? Business value adding? Anyone disagree with this? Yeah, I would agree with you. Business value adding perhaps could be important for you. Reporting a status to upper management.
Non-value.
Non-value. Why is non-value?
be better at doing the things that I have to do.
So you mean that perhaps may not be necessary to report status to the upper management all the time, or another thing could be in place? That is obviously, yes, your idea. Perhaps somebody else could debate against that. Gaining multiple approvals on documents. Non-value adding activity. Oh yeah, you tell me, especially in the Eastern culture. You do one piece of work, 100 people want to sign that. From one department to another department, and then you come back to the first person. That's non-adding value activity actually, and it takes a lot of time. That's why instead of the one process takes 10 minutes, it takes 10 days. Gaining management approval for routine actions. Why is non-value adding?
It's very similar to the first one. It's like if it's routine, if it's set up already,
yeah.
You shouldn't need approval for doing something.
Anyone disagree with that? Yeah, of course, it's a routine. Why do we need to have gaining management approval again all the time? Writing formal policies and procedures. From this side, anyone, what do you think?
Business value.
Business value adding, why?
I don't think it benefits the customer really.
Of course. Yeah, of course it is important for the business, but customers don't care about that. Creating ISO 9000 documentation. Anyone? Perhaps you can come up with that. You got ISO 9001 or?
Well, it is because in the industry, if you don't have ISO 9001, you might be a B or C class candidate or supplier and I'll not use you.
So which one do you class?
So I'll say value.
Value adding? Anyone agree or disagree?
I agree.
Agree?
Again,
Yeah?
manufacturing.
You disagree? Why?
We don't do anything with ISO, so I'm probably completely wrong, but we're saying no value down to the fact that it's the actions that have got the value, not creating documents.
Well, as a person who also been as an ISO internal consultant in the business, I know when we talk about ISO 9000, it's all about documentation. You need to create a lot of documents. Yeah, perhaps a lot of procedure and documents. For the business, it's valuable because if you don't have that, the next year when they come to visit you to assess you, so well, where are your documentation? You're not going to get the certificate anymore, right? Perhaps the customer doesn't care about that, but I know in terms of the service, they care about the service, but the actual documentation is important for the business. This is interesting one. Dealing with the customer complaint file. What is it? What do you think? What is it?
Well, for us it would be somebody coming to our desk telling us that they're not happy with the standard or something that one of our team did. So for us it's value adding because if we
Business value adding.
No,
Value adding, okay?
Get it right and do it for
Yeah.
the next customer right the next time.
Anyone else? Agree? I would say it's non-value adding activity. Debate with me. Why? Why do you think I'm wrong? I've got my own, obviously, idea.
Because it's short-term, that's a short-term view, not a long-term view. So if you don't keep your customer happy, you're going to lose your customer. Like our company, we haven't lost a customer in 6 years I've worked for the company. So we've got like return of service, return of work, and each time the margins have been larger. Whereas when we've had three issues across the board, and we've dealt with them instantly. Yeah. Whereas I know a company who hasn't, and then they've lost that client.
Okay, yeah. My view is, why should we have complaint from beginning? That's about quality. This is actually introduction. We move to like more Six Sigma. Why not doing everything perfect from beginning? Obviously, yes, of course, we need to minimum. I'm not saying that make it zero, but dealing with the customer complaint file, obviously already customer is not happy. Then you spend a lot of time dealing with the complaint rather than adding value activities or say, okay, well, let's do it again. Let's work on the customer complaint. Give the credit to the customer. I don't know, talk to the customer for a few minutes, half an hour over the phone. These are all lost. In the Lean or Six Sigma or quality management language, why do we need to have complaint from beginning? Let's not to have complaint or minimize it as much as possible. So I would say this is non-adding value activity. That's my point of view, obviously, perfectly okay with your view, but this is my actually idea for that. Holding.
Would you not say that complaints highlighted an issue in the process, so drawing attention to a certain thing that's not...
Of course, for the learning, again, that's something which is good. As a learning process, yes, could be adding value in terms of business. But in terms of, well, yes, again, that's a debate. Sometimes you say, okay, yes, sometimes it could be business value adding activity because you learn the lesson from the complaints.
Customers' needs, so
of course.
it needs to change,
Yeah.
therefore it's
Yeah.
value to the business.
Yeah, of course. But again, you move from, I mean, yes, you learn the lesson, and then hopefully you gradually reduce the number of the complaints and go towards the perfection. Holding a lesson learned meeting. What is it? Is it business value adding activity? Of course, because it's very important. It's part of the organizational learning. And of course, from your background as a HR people, this is something that you really value to that in terms of the training and development. And finally, assigning a tracking number to a shipment. If you're a logistic company, for example. Value adding, yes. That's important in terms of the traceability, perhaps, and of course, both business and the customer. Right. This is the interesting part about the Lien. 8 famous wastes. Sometimes, if you look at the research articles or books, some people may come with 7, some people may come with 8 or 9. It's not a I don't know, standard actually way of that. But I personally would love to have these 8 wastes. So these are the wastes. If you want to implement Lien, you need to minimize that. Overproduction. Don't produce it if you don't need it. It's not just manufacturing. Why do you need to print just so many different documents, even in the office, if you don't need them? That will end up with the inventory, a lot of inventory. Inventory in the office, inventory in the factory, and inventory is no good. It's waste. Piles of the stock there, waiting for the demand, waiting for the customer order. And these are all waste. And more inventory, of course, creates perhaps opportunity of the defects. Or more inventory could stop you to expose the defects or problems. You believe that you're doing okay because you're just producing. You're just providing. But if you just produce what you need, obviously small batches, then you have more opportunity to look at the problems, to identify the defects, which are no good, they're waste. And over-processing, dealing with the customer complaint, dealing with the rejected products, dealing with the unnecessary customer inquiry, dealing with the, the credits, for example. A lot of activities which are not adding value to your process. Waiting time or queue. Why the customer should wait behind the phone for 15 minutes if you can do it for 2 minutes, 5 minutes? Have you had any project? So, okay, yes, the average is 15 minutes or 10 minutes. Our target is 5 minutes. How we can reduce that? Waiting time from 2 different production lines. Why from this production line to that production line, it takes 24 hours. Instead, it could take 5 hours or even less than that. Excessive motion. It looks busy, but it's not busy. It's just people moving around. I had a tour in Nissan manufacturer. I don't know if you've been there or perhaps in your organization. It's wonderful. When you go there, you say, okay, hang on a second. Are they doing any work here? Of course they're doing. Of course it's more automation, but they implemented Lien and Lean Six Sigma. It looks very nice, tidy, no excessive motion of the people without any reason. This is the perfection. This is obviously the efficiency. Excessive transport. Why do you need to send the products to like different people with different wagons, or perhaps a lot of transport of your document from one department to another department, that you can actually avoid that? This one, I want to leave it to you. Can you give us an example? Poor skill utilization, because obviously you're from HR. So perhaps you may have some good example. Why poor skill utilization is a waste? Any idea?
Yeah, we've got an HR advisor writing contracts when we haven't got the capacity for our administrators to do it. So when someone with 20 years of industry experience who should be doing the value add activities is actually just doing paperwork.
That's it, yeah. They're not using their skill. 20 years experience, they're just asking to do some normal paperwork. Any other?
We've got an apprentice who's really, really good at sort of designing things.
Yeah.
Yet we use a marketing company instead of her.
That's it. Hopefully you can come back to your company now. So look at look at this. I'm good in communication. I'm not saying me. I mean, as an example, I'm good in communication. I'm good in I don't know, talking to the people. But they just put me in behind the computer in the room, closed door, and work on the data. So they're not using my skills. I've been trained or I've been sent for the training somewhere for something, some skills, some software, but they never use that. They never use that training. So they obviously waste the whole thing. So this is very, very important, especially in terms of the HR aspects. But this is also very interesting, the journey of the pain, I call that. If you look at the 5 first wastes, they're all connected to each other. Overproduction can create inventory. Inventory can create defects, mistakes. That will create overprocessing, and obviously excessive overprocessing increase the waiting time. And waiting time increase customer dissatisfaction. So if you remove that or minimize that, not removing, minimizing that, that will affect all of these 5 wastes actually. So you can actually manage the 5 wastes altogether. This is very, very important. But Taiji Uno, one of the Japanese engineers, this is what he said. The biggest waste is when you do not see these as a waste, or when you actually don't consider them. So that's why if you're not implementing Lean, perhaps you are losing a lot of money over the years because you're not looking at these appropriately. Okay, now I'll give you another exercise. 8 wastes. Hopefully you understood these 8 wastes, which we can call it Muda as well in Japanese terminology, because obviously the origin of the Lean. If you come across with some examples of this waste, perhaps in your organization, I don't know, it could be actual example or it could be something that potentially could happen. So if you spend a few minutes again talking to each other, perhaps. Lean tools and techniques. Again, I don't want to go through the actual technicality of these, but these are some examples of the Lean tools and techniques. You don't need to be a specialist on anything. You don't need to be, I don't know, a statistician. You don't need to be expert, perhaps a little bit training, but you can simply apply these tools. 5 S's, very simple, very basic, but very effective. Sort, obviously, make sure that everything is in the right place, set in order, shine, clean, standardize things, make sure that there is a procedure for everything. There are always those items are there on that desk, on that place, on that, I don't know, department. And sustain, make sure that's obviously you're not going to change that, and also you want to make sure that everyone understands that. This is more in manufacturing, single mode of exchange of dice, the exchange of the timing of the setting of the machinery, for example. Again, perhaps could be a lot of time in between. Why not using the small machines rather than the big machines for many, many different type of the productions. Value stream mapping, I've already explained that. Kanban or signaling. Just give the signal. I don't need this now. Signaling, if you go to the Nissan, is like more obviously sophisticated, like the light there, the computer screens there. Many organizations, they got it in the computer system. They can see it in the system. Okay, they don't need this now. I, as a supplier, don't send it to them. I send it when they need that. Simply could be very, very simple tools. In the offices, you can use, for example, the cards, for example, as in terms of the Kanban signaling. Visual management system. You put the board there and then try to obviously communicate, share information with each other. Could be very simple information, but everyone can visually communicate that every morning, every afternoon, and every day. Gemba walk, I've already mentioned that. Total productive maintenance, make sure you have a good maintenance. Don't wait for the system, for the machine to be broken down and then do something. Perhaps you can do regular maintenance about the devices. And high-performing team. You need a high-performing team. That doesn't mean most intelligent people or most, I don't know, educated people. It's all about hard work, teamwork. It's all about working together and sharing information with each other. As you could see, all of them are quite straightforward, but they're very, very effective. Okay, very quickly again, if you spend a few minutes, couple of minutes, in your view, what do you think could be the strategic operational benefit of the Lean before we quickly move to the Six Sigma? So, we go to the Six Sigma now, but before we go through that, I'm sure when you talk to the people, you say, okay, how good your organization is? Oh, we are very good, 99% quality. Always people say 99%, oh yes, it's perfect. This is the example for 99%. If you just spend 1 minute and look at this. I mean, for me, it's shocking. 99% quality for mail processing means 16,000 pieces of lost mail every hour. For medical surgery, 500 incorrect medical surgery per week is playing with the life of the people, actually. Banking, 80 million incorrect credit card transactions in the UK each year. These are all complicated operations or process. That's why 99% is no good. They have to go even further. 99.9997%. We're not working with 100 anymore, or percentage. We work with 1 million opportunities. Out of 1 million invoices, only 3 of them should be defective. So, oh, come on, is it possible? That's the aspiration for the Six Sigma, of course. This is about moving to the perfection. Otherwise, you cannot afford. This is the problematic thing, actually. About Lean Six Sigma, obviously Lean and Six Sigma work very nicely together. And when I talk about the Lean Six Sigma, it's also about Six Sigma. Don't worry about that, because from now on, many terminologies in research and practice is more about Lean Six Sigma rather than just Six Sigma, because they quite nicely work together. The Lean Six Sigma is reliable data-driven methodology and set up tools and techniques looking at continuous improvement by removing the opportunities of the variation and defects. So it's all about collecting the data and remove the opportunity of the defects and the variation. This is something which is the beauty of the Lean Six Sigma or Six Sigma. It's about rigorous methodology. We have 2 famous or common methodology: define, measure, analysis, improve, and control. And the other one is define, measure, analysis, design, and verify. This one is mainly for manufacture, but the other one is common for manufacturing and service. So that's the cookbook. This is the procedure. This is the, I would say, roadmap for implementing the Lean Six Sigma in the companies. It's about bottom line. It's not just about costs. It's not just about customer satisfaction. It's also about profitability. So it's about everything. It's about efficiency, making more money for your company, and customer satisfaction. It's for everyone, every organization to apply. I'm not saying it's a remedy for every organization, but it could be applied in any organization, any type. It's not depending on any specific sector. Of course, it requires training and development. Again, this is something which could be perhaps on your interest as a HR people, because you are perhaps the first point of contact in that case if you really want to carry on with that. So this is very, very important to understand that Lean Six Sigma is quite training hungry. So you need to train people. How Lean and Six Sigma could quite nicely work together. Of course, Lean is all about waste reduction, continuous improvement, and you empower the people, the employees, to actually reduce the waste, always do things smarter, simpler. At the same time, Six Sigma is about working more rigorously with the data, fact, more analysis, more scientifically try to solve the problems. Problems with the unknown solutions. This is something which is all about Six Sigma. Sometimes the people scratch their head, hang on a second, we did everything that we could do, but why we still have a problem? Why we still not making enough money? Why we are still actually having a lot of customer dissatisfaction or complaint? So these are the things that actually you may think about implementing the Six Sigma to find the cause of the problem rather than just to look at the problems and do nothing about that. So perhaps I would leave this for you later on to look at this. What could be the benefit of the Lean and Six Sigma, and what could be the drawbacks? Because hopefully when we go through further information, you can come back always to this when you go back to your organization and do this with a little bit more knowledge and understanding in terms of comparison between these two. But this is how actually they can work together, complement each other. Six Sigma helps Lean because Lean is quite loose. It's not systematic, it's not rigorous. It's not something that you can rely on the tools and techniques. It's not necessarily working on the fact and the data. This is the problem with the Lean. But however, Lean can help Six Sigma because Lean is about waste. Lean is about obviously working smarter, and if you implement Lean with Six Sigma together, you see waste as a problem, and you look at all of those 8 wastes. And of course, you can actually reduce the time, you can actually increase your efficiency and productivity. So they work quite nicely together. There are some researchers that they believe they're not as much compatible, but obviously this is their view, but most of the time, and many, many researchers and practitioners even, they believe they work quite nicely together. There are some fables about Lean Six Sigma. The people think that is a process re-engineering. They think it's quite easy and quick. Obviously it's not a quick fix, but you can always go with the low-hanging fruits, with the smaller projects to get the benefit as soon as possible. And of course it's more motivation for the managers and for the staff. It's not a miracle cure, it's not panacea for every problem or every organization, of course. And it's also not about reducing their staff. And it's not fat. It's not something, oh, well, okay, yeah, Six Sigma has been around from mid-80s and then it will go away for next few years. No, we wouldn't think about that. Even the Seven Sigma may come up. So it's something that always could actually continuously go. And of course, it's a structured way of the thinking. It's all about be very rigorous about problem solving, use the methodologies, the toolbox. This is the toolbox for you. Apply it and try to actually reduce the defect. And of course, you can add value and find the root cause of the problem. This is again the beauty of the Lean Six Sigma or Six Sigma. Find the root cause of the problem. Sometimes it's hidden. You never knew about that if you don't apply that. So this is very, very important in terms of saving money. And of course, these are more organizational values. You can control the inventory. You can have happier customer, of course. Of course, you need to work together, better environment in the company, and a lot of visual information sharing between customers and suppliers. And of course, it's visible to everyone. So you need to trust each other, work with each other, and a lot of empowered employees because they believe they're part of the game. They have been trained, they are the decision makers themselves, they are the problem solvers, and they feel much more valued about their work. There are some critical success factors. I don't want to go through all of them, but this is obviously very important. If you look at on the research, could be even 60 or 70 different critical success factors come up. Different researchers, different practitioners may come up with different ideas, but these are the more common ones. And obviously, they're really, really important as well. That's why we call them like the critical success factors. You need to have them. You need to have the resources, training, leadership, for example, project selection, appropriate project selection, top management commitments. So these are all important. But what I want to ask you now, this is very important again, especially looking at your role in the organization as a HR. I would like you to look at these success factors and highlight the top 5 critical success factors that practitioners and researchers believe. If you look at the lots of papers or books, those are in top 5. So if you just spend a few minutes, perhaps you can guess, or through your experience, come up with the top 5 critical success factors. Well, let's say I share with you something very interesting. These 5 in the research, obviously in the lots of case studies and the research, have been recommended as a top critical success factors. What does it tell you now, these 5? Training, structured team building, appropriate leadership, cultural change, top management commitment.
People.
It's about people. It's about organizational. Some people believe, oh, it's a lot of statistical things, but they're not in the priority. And you as a HR people, if you look at these top 5, you're right in the center of attention. You're right in the center of actually, I would say, decision making or value adding to Lean Six Sigma. And this one, this is the big lad. Top management commitment is the most important critical success factor because it's a top-down approach. But this is your role now as a HR people. We have an implementation framework or phases for the Lean Six Sigma. I'm not going through this phase 3 because it's more practical, but if you look at the next slide, phase 0 is about readiness for Lean Six Sigma, like these sessions. If you haven't been aware of the Lean Six Sigma before, this is about awareness. Hopefully you say, okay, are we ready about that? Culturally, are we ready about that? Let's think about that. And then you go to the other stages. Perhaps you can recognize the need for transformation, send some of your staff for training, just allocate a little bit budget as a HR department for the training. Think about how can that Lean Six Sigma be fitting in your organization, and then go further down, select the projects, and go to stage 3 or phase 3. I intentionally removed that. It's more about methodology, more about technical aspects. And finally, share your practices, share your success, publicize it with the other people, with other organizations, other departments. So this is very, very important. But I'm sure this is quite familiar to you guys as a HR people. You see your role in all these 4 phases. Readiness, of course, development, training, and then, of course, project selection, team building, and finally, communication and motivation, and also publicizing the success. You see how your role as a HR people are important in these phases of the Lean Six Sigma and how you can actually make that work. So, in terms of these implementation frameworks, again, as a HR people or learning and development people, you can think about this. Of course, I know that I've put this here, but I think you need perhaps more time to explore further about this and perhaps think about your thought about this framework and how that could be actually applied in your organization in the future. You need a team building. Of course, you need some specialized people. You need to train the black belts. There's nothing to do with the karate. It's all about the terminology of the experts in the Lean Six Sigma. These people are in the heart of the project management. They're the full-time Lean Six Sigma specialized people. And of course, there are different people working with them. For example, the board level champions. Champions are the people who provide the resources. Okay, not just signing the documents, the money, the resources, some commitment, for example. You as a HR people, through these bite-sized workshops, could take the knowledge now and then be as a champion, not necessarily as the specialized people. You don't need to go for the further trainings, but you can actually provide the platform for implementing the Lean Six Sigma. And of course, there are CPD availables, for example, the training availables for the black belts, green belts, which are a little bit less intensive trained compared to the black belts, and the white and the yellow belts. You as a managers, you as a champions could go for half a day training, 1 day training, and get the certificate as a white belt or the yellow belt to provide opportunity or platform or champion these people. And of course, these people work with project team, some other people helping them, and again, some beneficiaries and the people who get the benefit, like the customers. We have a methodology of the Lean Six Sigma. It's quite systematic. You define the problem based on what customer wants. You measure where you are, collect the data, what you are doing already, and then you analyze the root cause of that problem, of course, remove that, minimize that, and make sure you come up with the improvement solutions or strategies, and always monitor and control that. It's like a circle. You never end any Six Sigma project. You always continuously monitor that. And of course, you publicize your success here as well. So this circle is really, really important. When you go for the black belt or green belt training, lots of content is in the methodology. But when you do for like a yellow belt or white belt training, you don't need to be trained that much of these technical aspects. These are the benefits of the Lean Six Sigma. I'm sure I've been through these through my talk, obviously, but this is very important. Focus on the bottom line. It's all about profitability. It's not just about customer satisfaction. It's about cost reduction, efficiency, profitability, customer satisfaction, staff satisfaction. I know it's not, again, remedy for every problem, but it is very, very important in terms of something which is reliable, rigorous, and quite actually handy for any type of the organization. But there are also some challenges associated to that. It's not useful for impatient managers. You need to be patient with improvement. Every Lean Six Sigma project takes between 3 to 6 months time, depending on the project, depending on the complex operation. You need some capital investment. More specifically about training. Of course, you don't need to send everyone for the training. Some few people, you can start with the small projects. As I said, low-hanging fruit, a very small scale, and then gradually you can actually make your company as a Lean Six Sigma company after a few years. Everyone in the company could be trained. But that doesn't mean that necessarily you should do that, especially if you're a small or like a SME company. It is quite rigid and structured. This is the problem. It's not flexible. That's it. This is the roadmap. This is the methodology. You need to follow that. And perhaps the lack of information and knowledge exchange could be a problem, especially for SMEs. Many SMEs, they don't know what the Lean Six Sigma is. Of course, it's very practical for them. They can implement it, but they don't have the knowledge behind that. And it is unregulated training. You find many, many training providers out there. They provide the training. Every single of them have got obviously different curriculum perhaps. For example, us as a university, we do the training on this as well, which is obviously part of our curriculum. This is about your own view of the Lean Six Sigma in the organization. Again, this is perhaps could be a little bit of conclusion of what is your view. I don't want to just ask you to again discuss, but very quickly, can we ask anyone, what is your thought about this, especially going back to your organization, in terms of the history, in terms of the barriers in your organization, the charter in the organization, learning and development? Do you think this is something could be feasible in your company, your organization, or not? Perhaps anyone? Yeah, do you think it's quite feasible?
Absolutely. We are actually doing a little bit of it already.
Okay.
Some key areas, but absolutely something that could be sort of rolled out.
So this is something that you may think about obviously further, and then perhaps take it to other managers in the organization. Anyone else? Do we have anyone who here that perhaps think that no, well, it's not for us, not for our organization? I mean, that could be the case, perhaps. I don't know if sometimes you may have the people may have an issue with the organizational charter, for example, or in terms of like the, I don't know, the budget available for the training, or many other reasons. Okay, that's it. I've finished now. This is my email address and the telephone. Please feel free if you want to contact us. As I said, we have some CPD courses available. I know Alicia hasn't got the course in terms of the Lien or Six Sigma, but we may be able to provide some of those opportunities. We may have some funded, perhaps, opportunities to provide some information, or if you need any further information in terms of, I don't know, how we can move forward. So please feel free and contact us. And now I'm going to shut up and then hand over to Brenda.